The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
I say that the century on which we are entering, the century which will come out of this war, can be and must be the century of the common man.
We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions.
I have a dream. One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
The Korean War was the first proxy war of the Cold War between world's two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States had been working to convince the Soviets to enter the war against the Japanese once the war against Germany concluded. At the Tehran Conference in 1943 and the Yalta Conference in 1945, the Soviet Union had agreed to join within 3 months of the German surrender. On August 9, 1945, the Soviets kept their word and invaded Japanese-occupied territory in Manchuria and the Korean Peninsula. It took only 16 days for them to enter Pyongyang, and Stalin ordered the appointment of a strong communist leader for the Soviet-occupied territories. They found that leader in Kim Il-sung, a popular resistance fighter and Communist Party member who spent his early days leading anti-Japanese resistance in Manchuria. Kim was born in the Mangyongdae region of Pyongyang on April 15, 1912, at a time when Korea was already under Japanese control. Both of Kim's parents were part of the anti-Japanese resistance during the Second World War, and Kim, following in his parents' footsteps, joined the resistance and soon became a popular leader. After being chosen by the Soviets to lead, Kim began consolidating his power by establishing the Korean People's Army, recruiting loyal resistance fighters and purging the party of possible challengers to Kim's power. Several groups came together to form the Workers' Party of Korea, and with Kim as the chairman, he began calling himself the Great Leader and building statues of himself. He also began a domestic program of redistributing land to poor peasants and nationalizing almost all industry. At the closing of World War II, the Korean Peninsula was split into two separate spheres of influence. The Soviet Union controlled the Northern Territory, and the United Nations, led by the United States, the Southern region. The UN had planned to hold nationwide elections for all of Korea, but before they could, the South, with the backing of the United States, announced the formation of the Republic of Korea and claimed sovereignty over the entire Korean peninsula. As a result, the Soviet-backed North held elections to form the Supreme People's Assembly, which announced the formation of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. With uprisings in the South, Kim believed Southerners would support an invasion by the North and asked for Stalin's approval. In April of 1950, Stalin agreed to a northern attack only under the condition that China would send reinforcements if needed. The stated reasoning was that the South had attacked the North first, and their aim was to arrest and execute the Southern leader, Syngman Rhee. The invasion began on the morning of June 25, 1950. KPA forces attacked along the 18th parallel, capturing Seoul in only 3 days. By early August, the Southern government, led by Rhee, controlled only a small section of the southern part of the Korean peninsula, defending what was called the Pusan Perimeter. It was at this point on September 15, 1950, that the UN coalition, led mainly by the United States, landed near Seoul, cutting off northern troops and supply lines. By October 19th, Pyongyang was captured. US forces kept pushing north. It wasn't until the southern forces reached the Yalu River, bordering China, and after several warnings that the Chinese, with KPA forces who had fled to China, attacked the US, pushing them south. Pyongyang was again captured by the North in December, followed by the recapture of Seoul in January. As the war dragged on, the line moved back and forth until movement stalled. Trenches were dug, and some of the fiercest fighting took place. It was until June of 1951 that armistice talks began between the parties, while fighting raged on. The agreement was finally signed in July of 1953, and hostilities stopped at what became known as the Armistice Line, the line that still divides Korea today. While the Armistice Agreement ended hostilities, it was not a peace treaty, so while we consider the Korean War ending in 1953, it technically never ended. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel History in Minutes below and like this video. Also like and follow our social media pages.